certain choices are time. Time running out isn't something to completely avoid. In some cases, not getting involved can open up new possibilities. Other choices aren't timed. Options will need to determine whether Kika has any special affection for another character or not. You survive until the second night. The story will branch into one of 5 different plot lines based on your earlier decision. The other characters cannot manage all situations in the various plot lines regardless of what you do. If a character
That
isn't
sounds
making it,
terrifying.
try getting that plot with a different set of survivors or having the same group of characters venture through some other storyline. Becoming closer to someone can add or remove future choice options and change how some scenes play out. The decision to build that connection may not go unnoticed by the other characters. Earning the full amount of affection with certain characters can require getting into the plotline. Page up returns to previous text. Last choice. B key opens full text. That's so dark. Survival horror. It's a horror choice. I don't even know. My grip on my lantern tightens as the fog around us thickens. While the forests in this area generally, I just straight up use a different word, are relatively safe compared to Sinlos, I can't help but feel my hair stand on it. But yeah. My free hand fingers the hilt of my sword, something akin to an effect.
Have you seen it
Is this
before?
me or is this somebody else? Mel breaks the
That's someone else.
silence, either sensing my unease or assuaging his own. I hope it's
I haven't.
Oh, this
I've
is
had
me.
no
I'm
reason to
Kika.
go near this cursed lake until now. What of you?
Bamel scratches his chin casually, as though I asked what his
I
favorite
traveled
food
a long
is.
way around it once before. Not so pleasant. Something about it just frays your nerves. Although, even being near it is enough.
I'm not the only one who feels it. A sense of relief hits me, but not enough to undo the buzzing of anxiety. The lake, Sinlos. Most try their best to avoid it all their lives. The hundreds who die attempting to cross its unearthly black water, dragged to death by the creatures lurking within, aren't a
No
secret.
wonder you were assigned this mission.
There are a few who've had first-hand experience with the place, even if from a distance. He'll probably keep being picked whenever they need someone to cross for however long he's with us. Mel shrugs, bringing my attention back to the dark path before
At least we're
us.
taking the bridge this time. It'll only take 2 days instead of double that, and the sooner this place is behind us, the better.
It would be preferable not to risk it. But time is of the essence. We don't really have a choice.
One of our allied villages, Hime, I don't know, is being harassed by brigadiers, a band of ruffians. We don't have many guards to send as themselves. The least we
You have
can
to
do
send
is
the guard.
arrive before we're too late to be of any use. These kinds of squabbles happen often, but have to be put down lest they turn into a blood grudge or all-out war. Last we heard, neither option was that far
I can
off.
also see why they chose you to come out here.
Why? Why did they choose? I glance at Bumel, an eyebrow raised. A slight smile plays
You're
across
always
his
so
lips.
calm and so serious. Nothing can get to you. You're the best choice they had.
Smile now tugs at my own lips. I'd like to thank him, but that wouldn't be so calm and serious as he just described. And if that's how he sees me, I'd like to keep it that way. My lack of reaction only makes his smile grow, and he chuckles a bit before refocusing the path. I do the same. It wouldn't be right to let my guard down in a place like this. Mel appears to feel differently, however.
You know the town on the other side of the lake, though. It's not so similar to ours. If all goes well, perhaps we'll have enough time to enjoy the new area.
For the most part, I ignore him, nodding when applicable. Mel is a talkative sort, and if chatting helps keep his worries down and his sword hand ready, I have no complaint. After a time, the thick fog surrounding us clear. A quick wooden dock comes into view, and with the sounds of water, gently lapping at its sides. Mel shifts beside me, stretching his lantern on as far as it will go. He seems
Someone's
tense.
already here.
A young woman stands by the dock, eyeing us warily. Does she intend to cross tonight? Evidently, she has the same question. As we step up next to her, it's clear she isn't simply passing by. She's waiting. The stranger nods curtly to
Margaret.
Kiga the Steadfast.
It's a
Bamela.
cottagecore lady.
Oh, Bemele? His name is Bemele? I gotta...
Bemil. Me too, man. Me too. This would work better here.
Eyes up.
They're wide shut.
There's a stuffy silence. Margaret turns to gaze out across the lake, expression unclear. With not much to say, Bemel and I do the same. From here, the black surface of the lake looks disalarmingly calm. Wind rushes across its surface. Its surface. A sound, like whispering.
Pleasure to
But
be of
perhaps
service.
it actually is whispering. I concentrate, trying to place difference, searching for breaks and rhythms. After a few seconds, I feel foolish. Doesn't matter what the noise is, whether I hear them or not, we're not alone. The Nixie are out there. A feeling that I can't quite shake tells me they've already noticed the little group of people on this shore. It feels hostile. My stomach sinks, and I instead address Bemele.
Where is the guide?
Unless he's on the center island, or on the complete other side, your guess is as good as mine.
You are a god.
It's done.
Panic rises inside me. Panicked, I try hard
We
to
can't
quell.
cross without him, and we need to get going soon.
You can't cross with him either.
The woman behind us, Margaret, cuts in with something like a snort.
What?
I know the guide will be here tonight. I have already made arrangements with him to cross.
Bemele and I share a look. The woman seems haughty and willing to put up a
I
fuss.
have his word he'll take me today. It would be wiser for the two of you to begin the trip around if you're really in such a hurry. Or you can make camp here and wait for him to make the trip back if you prefer.
What, we can't go with you in the same boat? Can't all pile in? I don't need to
No.
turn my attention to Bemele to know
Not
he's
with a baby in
riled
the
up.
fire, you can.
I step in before he can say
Even if
something
that
rash.
is so, my companion and I must begin the trip tonight.
Margaret is unimpressed and opens her mouth to argue further.
We'll wait for the guide to arrive before coming to a conclusion about any of this.
Clamps her mouth shut and lets out a sigh.
You can do as you like.
With the matter tentatively settled, Bemele moves away. His finger begins to tap loudly against the top of his hill. He shifts from one foot to another, then grunts.
What's that bastard even up to?
Almost visibly startled, but managed to restrain myself. He probably doesn't know any better. I'm sure of that. It's not worth
With
mentioning.
a mouth like that, you shouldn't even have the right to ask the guide to take you across.
How ludicrous. He's faced far worse than a bit of foul language.
Do you know anything that's happened with this lake?
I know enough.
Margaret is clearly not convinced, but she shrugs and makes a show of turning her back.
The guide's father is Garvin the Exemplar. Garvin never accepted the guide as his son, all the way up until he died in this lake.
Oh no, you called him a
Your
bastard,
statement
and he
could be seen
really
as
is a
tasteless.
bastard. How could you?
Oh.
No, not the best.
Bemele
Not the
rubs
pot
back.
calling
I'm
the
just
kettle
gonna-
black.
Whatever. Rubs the back of his neck. His face
My
is regretful.
apologies to the guide. I didn't mean it that way. I never knew about his... well, that.
Smile spreads across my face. When I quickly wipe away, he really did just whisper. Silence slowly stretches between the three of us, growing more awkward with each passing second. Margaret seems irritated and Bemele abashed. We should get more information.
It's been years since the
Shit.
time of Garvin the
Quite.
Exemplar.
You're quite
It's
informed,
impressive you
Margaret.
knew.
Margaret smiles, lifting her chin into the air. Over-exaggerated action is somehow pleasant rather than belittling. She's much happier than I had anticipated.
Yes, I do like to stay informed. And you knew too. Good. This lake shouldn't be allowed to swallow even history itself.
My town, the one where I was born at least, was also Garvin's hometown. I was very young when he passed. The entire village went into mourning. People broke down crying in the streets. I'll never forget it. He meant much to everyone who knew him.
Oh, I have no such connections. I merely read about it.
She pauses, seeming to scan the air in front of her for something
I'm
to say.
sorry for your loss.
It's all right. Thank you.
My town may have taken pride in Garvin the Exemplar and what he achieved, but we weren't the ones who lost the most. That would be his family. Each remained locked inside our own thoughts, not another word passing between us. Eventually, a small light appears on the bridge ahead, gently swaying through the foggy air. It's closer and closer till it becomes apparent it's a figure carrying a lantern. That must be the guide, although I can't shake
World's
the
most
ghostly aura it
popular
gives off.
ship.
The figure steps onto the shore, but we wait for him to approach us instead of going to meet him. None of us are sure how close to the waters we can get before it's no longer safe. Wow, you're pretty! Stops in front of us and says,
Is that
Are you the guide of
"What's
Sinlos?
that?" The man nods. He has a sharp face and
Well,
weary
that's
eyes.
grand. We would like an escort across the lake.
Mel... We should call him... I don't know what to call him. The melee. What he's called, I guess. Motions to the two of us, and Margaret approaches, a strange smile on
Hello,
her face.
it's good to see you again. I'm ready to cross, as we've agreed upon.
The guide turns
Former
to
lovers
face
and
her as
enemies
well.
to lovers.
Face remaining unchanged, it must not be a lie. He would have had to say something otherwise. She really does have preference to travel with him. That's a problem.
Is there a way we can all begin the trip tonight?
Yes, I will allow
Oh,
all
he
three
does
of you to
speak.
go. But with that many, at least one will die before we reach the other side.
Well, then you'll find out
I
how to
furrow
pronounce
my brow.
Bemil.
It is a disturbing addendum, and one offered with little emotion attached. The melee glares back, asking without asking what we're supposed to do with such circumstances.
You should go around.
Fuck
The
you.
sentence hangs in the air, the second half unspoken. If you want to live.
We
We
don't
go
have
around.
time
He's got
for
a Welsh
that.
accent.
There are people
Instead of
counting
going
on us
down,
for
it goes up.
protection. Why
don't
does
know.
she need to go?
He jerks a finger at Margaret, whose face contorts with anger.
I don't need to explain myself to you. My journey has already been put off once, and I was promised I could go today. I will be going under any circumstances.
She meets Bemele's eyes with a gaze of steel. He starts to speak and she
An
cuts
extra
in.
day or two shouldn't be that much of a problem for you. Whoever you're meeting can surely wait such a tiny amount longer. Patience is a virtue, after all.
The night is only so long, and if we're still on the bridges when the sun comes up, we'll all die as they sink back below the surface. If you don't decide soon, no one will be going.
Guide is dispassionate, stoic. I would almost feel something's wrong with him if I didn't share the trait myself. Bemele pulls me to the side, jaw clenched tight. We're not gonna beat her up. His voice is low. He darts a glance at
We can
Margaret.
easily
Beat her up,
get
beat her
her
up,
to
beat her
back
up.
off if we make this into
We're
an
not
actual
gonna. Oh
fight.
no, we're not
After
gonna
all,
fight
we
her.
have to go tonight, yes? If one of us
Damn.
really is to die, it'll be her.
Boo.
Would staying be a worse fate than her death?
I stare at the dock, refusing to meet Bemele's eyes, and try to keep my voice as level
We
as
don't
possible.
know her situation. This isn't a decision we can make for her.
I don't want to bully her off the plate. He leans in closer, apparently having missed what I said. I remove the sympathy for her in my response when I speak
The guide
again.
won't accept something like that, I assume.
His face is...
Then what else do you have in mind?
First of all, you and I cannot split up. Either we both
I
stay,
can't-
or we both
Well,
go.
he's the Grim Reaper from Billy and Mandy.
Right.
I'm such a huge
That's
fan.
not a question.
I cross my arms, a hand on my chin. I have full confidence in my abilities and in Bamela's, but there's no reason not to believe the guide knows exactly what he's talking about. If we go, he might not be able to give the group the attention we each deserve. That would mean we truly would be putting Margaret's life at risk, on top of our own. I don't think. Guide approaches Bamela and me before we have time to fill
We
out
will
my
stay.
thoughts.
What?
Fine.
You would have already decided to come if you had the proper mindset for a journey such as
This
this.
is gonna be a
You
pain.
two will stay.
Pain.
But you don't understand.
The guide raises a hand to me, eyes cold. My words die in my throat. If he decides we aren't fit to cross, how could we persuade
This is
him otherwise?
bullshit. We are more than equipped to
I
make
think you
this
should
journey.
take me and we should
And we
leave
know
this guy
more of what it
behind.
means to be in
Yeah,
danger
fuck
than most
Blue
will
Neil.
know in all their
Piece of
lives.
shit.
He's kind of got
You two will
issues.
stay.
Bamela's muscles tense, and I put a hand on his arm. He trembles slightly beneath my fingers, his hands curling themselves into fists, but he doesn't say another word. The guide turns around and heads onto the bridge. Margaret uncomfortably looks from the
Goodbye.
guide to us. Bye! Then she steps onto the bridge after. Melly sighs, the anger releasing from him, and they disappear into the fog.
Farewell.
We can just go around. That's fine. Okay. Go around. We reach Hammer safely.
Humor.
Though it took much longer than we would have liked. Much of the village had been damaged or even destroyed. It was my fault for taking so long. I did all I could to aid them in defending their town and repairing what could be salvaged. Bamela was disheartened by how little assistance we were able to provide. However, he could not deny how fortunate we were to have both made it at all, especially after we caught wind of the report given by the guide to the elders for that night. Every village close enough to Sinnols gets informed on what occurs in that lake. He does so because communities wish to be made aware if they've lost one of their own. Uh-oh, she died anyways. This time his news was the death of a young woman, the one we spoke to. Margaret is gone. Aww.
Oh, fuck.
I've not heard nor seen the
fucked
guide
up.
myself since then. I must assume he is still there on that foggy shore, waiting for desperate souls to seek out his light so they may cross the lake of true darkness. Though I regret that I was not able to do more to protect these people, no one admonishes me for it. They seem sure that I did everything possible. I hope that is true, even if I cannot bring myself to do it. Soon Bamela and I will return home, and we will once again take the long way around. My one... Is this the... I think this is an ending. I just got an achievement, so... That's a quick...
Wow, this is a really short game.
My one piece in all of this is that Sinlos will be far behind me in a matter of days. I intend to keep it there. Yeah. That was the end. Alright, let's try this again.
When you said it was a short game, I thought it was like
Straight up, so I have to take
Not
this
a
spot.
visual novel?
I haven't.
Skip.
I've had no.
must be, yeah.
Not gonna say. Reach remained locked inside her own thoughts. Oh.
And I believe you.
I believe we should go. And I'm gonna go. We're gonna go on the lake. If she's gonna die anyways, we might as well go in her place.
Yeah.
Miller's reply is firm. My steadfastness seems almost weak in comparison to its certainty. He addresses
We
the
shouldn't
guide.
waste more time. Let's shove off.
You shove off. The guide slowly turns around without even a nod to show his agreement. Margaret stares at Bamela and me, something of a resolve in her gaze, and she follows after the guide. At least she didn't insist that we stay
We
behind.
should do what we can to protect her. It's
So
our
we're all
fault she's
going
being
on
put
now?
in even further danger.
Exactly my thoughts. We will take care of everything. Maybe I'm being naive, but I have no intentions of letting anyone fall victim to this lake tonight.
Fucking
Those monsters can starve.
drop
She
some
turns
shit.
to follow the others across. I will protect everyone on this trip. I will. We will make it through this. Then I step out onto the dock and join them. As soon as I step into the wood, the temperature drops. The light of my lamp shines against the water's surface as reflective as a mirror. Until we reach land again, death is only one small mistake away. We fall into the line, with the guide leading the way. Margaret stays close to him, and I behind her, watching to make sure she doesn't slip on the slick wet wood. Mela brings up the rear. Each of us hold our lanterns in front of us, but it does little good. The fog is thick and nigh impenetrable, consuming the light as if hungry for it. Above the surface of the lake, it is deathly quiet. No longer is there the whispering wind, nor the sound of water lapping. I miss. Nor the sound of water lapping against the shore. It's just our own mismatched footsteps and the sound of my quickened breathing. My eyes drift back to the lake against my better judgment. No wonder there's not even the sound of water with how still the surface is. It seems almost sturdy, with the sheen of a black marble floor. I've heard rumors that the water is Sinnoh's heavier, more difficult to disturb than natural water, but just the weight of its oppressive cling is enough to keep someone down, even without. Something even darker than the abyss of the lake flickers just below the surface, or at least I think it does. I turn my gaze to Margaret's back. It's better to stay focused.
Fall back a bit. You're following me too closely.
Okay. Dad is looking over his shoulder, addressing Margaret.
If someone gets pulled into the lake, they'll instinctively reach for anything to hold on to. Do not let that be you.
Margaret's shoulders rise, and she nods with great seriousness.
I understand. Thank you for the advice.
He ignores her gratitude.
You can speak amongst yourselves if you so choose, as long as you pay attention to where you're going. There is no worth in listening to the sounds out there. If there's anything at all, it'll only be Nixie trying to set you on edge.
All right. Then, could you tell us your name? You didn't have a chance to properly introduce yourself, and I've only heard you being referred to as the guide.
I don't have a name.
No name. We're gonna call him Lestat.
Just the guide.
He's facing the front again. His voice is expressionless as before. I have no way of guessing how he feels.
Oh.
It's probably not something he wishes to talk about. However, there was something else I wanted to say, so changing the subject is not.
Margaret, thank you for allowing us to join you.
Margaret shrugs non-committally.
It wasn't exactly up to me. The guide said he would take you.
She hesitates, and then she looks tentatively over her shoulder at
But
me.
thank you for saying that. It's appreciated.
Bemele and I will do our best to be an asset on this trip, rather than a burden.
That's nice. I'm not afraid to be out here, though. Still, at least with your training, you should be able to take care of yourselves.
It's comforting to know that everyone here is so confident in their abilities, not enough to forget how terrible it feels to be over this lake. I'm not sure if it's fortunate or unfortunate. Believing yourself to be secure doesn't mean that you are. Uh-oh, is whispering. As the conversation lulls, a new sound breaks through. It's the whispering again, the chatter of inhuman voices, this time coming from all around.
Taking care of yourself is exactly what you need to do.
Guide is speaking again, except louder, as if to cover the Nixie's voice with it.
Work to survive at all costs, and hope that everyone around you has enough sense to do the same. That's the only way you'll make it to the other side.
Margaret nods in response, but I hear a grunt from behind
Groups
me.
tend to go further when they work together to achieve
That's
the
never
same
good.
goal.
Guide doesn't say anything in response to Bemele's grumbling either. I'm not sure whether he didn't hear Bemele or whether he just didn't feel the statement made thus far are worthy of address. It just doesn't. I have a feeling it's the latter. Go
I
around a
can't
large
believe you
bend in
didn't
the
take the river Styx.
No, part of it forking off into another way. I wonder how the guide knows which one of these essentially identical paths is correct when something. Oh, we're not even. I thought we were going in a boat, but we're literally just walking on
Okay, I'm not
a
the
bridge.
only one that thought it was a boat either.
I
Nice.
thought we were going to hop into a boat at some point, but this is just like a dock that goes all the way across the lake. I wonder how the guide knows
Yeah, I
which
thought
one
it was
of
gonna
these
be like a
essentially
river Styx
identical
sort of
paths
situation.
is correct when something in the corner of my eye catches my
I
attention.
believe I saw something over there.
Keep walking. No need to worry.
The guide's voice is calm and level. I decide against pressing the air, not wanting to set everyone even.
What did he say?
Perhaps not wanting the conversation to be caught by the guide, he speaks softly, but I couldn't quite hear him because of it. Uh-oh, there's a beast behind him. I take my eyes off Margaret ahead for a moment to explain it to Bemele and stop dead in my tracks. Only one word is able to escape me in my
Behind.
Behind. Behind Bemele stands another figure looming in the darkness. Seeing my face, he grabs the hilt of his sword, whips around and staggers swiftly backwards. Several meters away, a crooked, twisted black figure hobbles its way towards us. Some kind of liquid drops off its head, curling around the edges of its face. It almost looks like it's crying. Bemele backs up until he's standing beside me. The figure
So sad.
continues its slow advance, head jerking from one angle to another. Just follow the guide.
It's one of them.
Ignore it and follow
Yes,
him.
Nixie that stumble across the bridges looking for opportunities.
The guide is standing next to us. I didn't even notice him
The
approach.
ones that can make it out of the water are generally referred to as prowlers.
I had no idea things like that were out here. Is that what Kika saw down the other path?
The guide says nothing, instead returning to the front of the party. Margaret watches him pass. Her frustration morphs into a nervous optimism. Something seems to come to her
Well,
mind.
Nixie aren't slowed down much by swords, but at least the light keeps them away, right?
Margaret's hand grips her face tight and desperation bleeds into her voice. I bite the inside of my lip.
Direct light will force it to return to the lake. However, it'll try to drag the light, or you, down with it before it goes.
Instinctively, I reach for the hilt of my sword, despite the fact that it would do little to protect me. Prowler is getting closer, jerking forward, stopping them, resuming its slow advance.
Okay. Does anyone have a light we can leave here? That way it won't follow us.
Only matches.
Bemele spits. He's the one bringing up the rear, so he's the one most likely to be in danger if it keeps following. Guide, however, moves
Don't forget
forward.
it's there, don't let your guard down, and don't get left behind.
But
What?
walk fast.
How am I supposed to keep walking with this thing at my heels? You said
Do
it
what the
wants
guide
to attack.
says.
Yeah,
Don't give it the chance.
Bemele sputters in anger, and the guide summarily ignores him. I solidly grab hold of Bemele's upper
Here,
arm.
I'll lead you like this, and you can keep your focus solely on the prowler. Make sure it doesn't get too close.
Fuck it.
Bemele eyes the guide with unresolved hostility, but allows himself to softly sigh and relief. Gazes at me with.
At least there's someone I can count on.
Despite the fact I'm going against his advice, the guide says nothing more. It's clear now that he doesn't give a damn what we end up doing. Some part of me is glad for that. I want to help everyone make it through, and it would be worse to have to persuade the guide every time help was necessary.
Kika, thank you.
I'm absolutely gonna throw you to the beast if it comes down to it. Bemele
Do it.
places a gentle hand on my shoulder. I'm gonna nod seriously. Bemele's face hardens and he moves his free arm down. I fully link his arm with mine and now properly settled look forward. Margaret is following the guide with some reluctance, turning back every so often to check on us. I wave my lantern to signal we're catching up. Margaret returns her head to the front and quickens her pace. With a tug on Bemele, we start to follow them. The four of us continue cautiously over the bridges, only this time the wet, swishing footsteps of the prowler join the sound of our own. The prowler walks without a set pattern, sometimes fast, sometimes slow. It takes long steps and then short ones. At times it stops walking entirely. Does it hurt to be out of the water like this, or is it trying to be difficult to read? Suddenly, the whispering in the lake grows louder. I steel myself, trying not to let it get to me. The most important thing in a situation like this is to remain calm. I can't lose my head. Then, all at once, I notice the guide and Margaret have come to a halt.
They're stopping.
Another one.
No. I tug on Bemele and he understands. We draw up close to Margaret, ready to protect her if need be. The guide holds out a hand.
Don't get any closer.
Just over his shoulder, I see another prowler stumbling towards us, white liquid dripping from its eyes. Now we've got one on both sides. The guide's hand turns over in a palm up.
Give me a lantern. We'll throw it.
Margaret extends her own with a trembling hand when Bemele speaks instead, his back
If you have to
still
take someone's, take mine.
Yes, an extra light won't do us much good when we're standing this close together.
Margaret takes Bemele's lantern from him, guarded relief displayed on her
Thank
feet.
you.
She hands the lantern to the guide, whose hand grips it tightly, knuckles growing
Stay
pale.
here. I can't throw it too far, or the light will blow out before it reaches the Nyx.
He steps closer to the monster, his movements light and confident. As he nears, the prowler starts to back away. Is it only the approaching light that's making it retreat, or are they afraid of him? The guide is far enough away from us. The fog is partially obscuring him, hiding his movement. The voices from the lake grow louder and louder. Water suddenly begins to splash across the lake, in the distance, onto the edges of the bridge. They want him to mess up. I didn't notice how tense I am until Bemele eases my grasp on his arm. Then suddenly the guide takes multiple long and fast strides forwards, throws the lanterns, and jumps backwards to regain the lost distance. There's a sharp hiss and then a deep splash, and the voices of the Nixie grow quieter. Not silent, but quieter. A sigh escapes me, and the guide comes back
We should
to our
keep
group.
going before it comes back.
He said he has matches. I don't know why we couldn't just light a match and throw that instead. I glance at Bemele and realize he too is looking relieved at the guide before us. And then I see it. Uh-oh, the first prowler. It's still there. It's right there.
That would explain not matches.
Uh-oh. It lunges at him and pulls him down, taking me with it. We slam against the bridge, our lantern light blinking out as it hits the wood. We're engulfed in darkness and fog, and before I can do anything, Nyx reaches out from the edge and clings to Bemele. It pulls hard, separating the two of us. Quickly slides near the edge as the Nyx retreats. Bemele struggles to loosen the monster's long fingers and to no avail. Letting him go. I lunge forward, but my hands only slap the surface of the bridge. I try to crawl closer, but I can't keep up with the rapid pace of the horror playing out in front of me. Margaret rushes over to me, bathing me in her lantern's light and scaring away another Nyx at the surface's edge. The Nyx with Bemele likewise dives fully back into the black waters, dragging him completely off the side. Goodbye!
Damn.
That's
That would
because I
explain why you
can't
don't have a
pronounce his
boat.
name.
He wasn't
Bemele.
important anyways. Me.
Bemele. Emily. Not Bemele. I
Family.
scramble to the edge and Bemele is there, flailing to keep above water. Before I can even extend a hand towards him, he's violently yanked underneath. Oh, now I'm crying. The surface
Damn.
of the water grows still,
We
in just
knew
a few
him
seconds,
so long.
as if the entire altercation didn't happen, as if Bemele hadn't just been taken, as if he'd never been here in the first place. I stare down at the void in disbelief. A clicking,
wasn't here?
cluttering sound, like the whining of
No one.
cicadas, wraps around us. The Nixie are laughing. A hand grips my shoulder. The guide pulls Margaret and I back over to the center of the bridge, grabbing my lantern and in front of my
Relight
face.
it. We're moving forward.
Okay. I stare at the lantern, unable to move.
What happened here? It
My
didn't
partner's
happen.
dead. Oh well.
Not
Whatever.
until we reach the shore. Pretend he will be there on the other side.
Approach is way too fast.
Whatever it takes.
Well, he said that one of us wouldn't make it, so one of us has not made it. So that means the rest of us will make it, correct?
Yeah.
I don't know if it works like that.
Get up.
That was the sacrifice.
I rise to my feet, barely conscious of what's happening. Margaret helps stabilize me. Guide holds out the lantern again, and this time I take it. My free hand slips into my pouch, pulling out a box of matches. I get one out and hold it up in front of my face. I can't seem to figure out what to do next. Margaret gently takes the match from my hand, relighting my lantern for me. As the light bursts to life and shines across her face, I feel like crying. Guide nods and begins forward again. Stiffly I follow, the box of matches crumbling in my grip. Margaret, now sure that I'm as okay as I can be, catches up to the guide but remains closer to me than she
What
was
happened
before.
to the other lantern?
It was taken after the light went out.
What conversation there was, or could have been, gets no further. It barely penetrates my mind. Margaret hovers nearby, watching me with clear worry on her face. I want to say something, want to reassure her, but I feel like I'm barely even in my own body. Nothing feels real. I can't accept Bemele being gone. I can't accept that he's gone for good, just like that. He can't have just disappeared. Yeah, he can. Guy's words float
He's
through my
dead.
mind,
maybe
and it's
Raton's.
remarkably easy to believe what he said. But Melly will be waiting for me on the other side, or maybe he'll be in a tavern when I make it back home, clapping me on the back and commending me for a job well done. He'll be laughing and drinking as he usually does, starting a fuss with the other guards. He can't just be gone. It can't be that I won't see his face again. A dim, unusual noise penetrates the fog of my mind, and I realize Margaret is trying to talk to me. Her words sound far away, like she's speaking through a tunnel. She smiles nervously at me. I only look at her. A smile slides off her face. Instead, she stays by my side, walking forward with me.
Huh?
Something is pulling on my arm. Warmth penetrates my cloth armor, and the feeling grounds me slightly in my body. Margaret is whispering to me, pulling me forward and pointing at the guide. My eyes follow the finger, and I realize the guide is getting
He's
further
moving
away.
faster.
I snap back into awareness. Danger is still afoot, and Margaret is still alive. Shame trickles down my neck. Shame for having lost my wits. I'm not supposed to be this way. I double my speed, feet pounding hard against wood. Sound and rhythm soothe me, enough to fully clear my
Thank you for
mind.
telling me, Margaret.
I say it quietly, so quietly I'm sure she can't hear, but Margaret runs past me, getting into her original position. She plants in
You're
response.
welcome.
We go faster and faster until suddenly we're full-on sprinting across the slick wooden boards. Figures in the dark fog fly past us at a blur, and it occurs to me that the branching paths that the bridge appear to be thinking. I try hard to swallow my rising panic. Guide shouts something, but it's drowned out by the frantic pounding of our footsteps. I'm trying to piece together what he said, "Don't stop, turn," when he takes a masterfully sharp right down a different path using his own momentum, and the sleek wood to slide into the new direction with no losses. Margaret must not have worked out the warning either. She's completely caught off guard by the guide's change in course. She runs straight ahead, past the turn, and continues down the path we've been following until now. She clumsily begins to halt her momentum down on the wrong bridge. Then I come upon the floor. Oh no. I'm gonna go with her. I keep
Yeah,
staring
please
straight ahead, not
protect her.
making an attempt to go the correct direction. I come upon Margaret, who nearly runs into me in her efforts to turn around. Her face
Why
twists
are
at
you-
the sight. I have to save you. I ignore her and move to face the other way. The path we came from is disappearing into the water.
have
It's
to
sinking.
jump.
Just jump. Margaret holds up her hands, but I grab her and spin her towards the path the guide is
I'll
on.
stay at the rear.
I practically shove her, and without further hesitation, she takes the leap. She makes it just past the edge of the bridge, knees buckling as she lands, but is soon back up on her feet and holding her lantern out towards me. Beams with pride. Point towards the guide. I gesture down the bridge to the guide rapidly fading light. She slowly nods and runs after. With Margaret safe, I can more easily focus on my own action. It takes no effort to jump over the gap, and as soon as I land, I break into a sprint to catch up. The bridge that I jump from trembles and quickly vanishes into the water. Margaret and the guide's backs appear in front of me once again. I bite my lip to prevent me from feeling overwhelmed with relief. At least Margaret is still here. I can still protect her. I won't lose someone else. The guide's fading light bounces in the distance, a clear signal that he's still running. I focus everything I have on catching up. Slowly we begin to close the distance. As the night wears on, our strength rapidly fades. Even my stamina is being challenged. I can't imagine what this must be like for Margaret. She's holding her side as she runs, clearly cramping from the exercise.
She's gonna die. You
It
killed
can't
her
be. I
again.
think she's wearing a skirt too, which is not going to be fun to run in, like a flowy dress. How much longer will this last? People have to rest sometime. Almost as if in response to my thought, the guide abruptly halts. I skid to a stop as well, sliding on the surface of the wood. He stares at something slightly out of view. I step up to join him, following his gaze further down the path. Oh, there's somebody else. There, curled in a little ball, illuminated by the
Is it a
lantern's
lich?
light, cowers a person. His hands grip his head, and he rocks from side to side, mumbling
It's a
incoherently.
man.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I couldn't. I just couldn't. Please. I'm
Are
sorry.
we gonna take this man with us, or are we gonna leave him? I'm struck with an array of
him.
questions. What is going on? Why would he wander out onto these bridges on his own? Did he make it this far by himself? Were there others with him? If that's somehow the case, I can't blame him for the state of shock he's in. The man stops mumbling. He glances above him, seemingly only now just having the strength to lift his head. His expression, the deepest sadness, along with the clear markings of terror, are scrawled across his face. I stare at him in shock, not sure what to do.
Leave him.
Guide says leave him. I snap my eyes away from the man and instead to the guide's cold, implacable face.
He won't make it regardless.
The guide one.
We have to we
leave
just
him.
have
I
to do
think
what
the
the
local
guide
knows what to
says.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's made this trip many times, so we have to trust him, despite
It
what we
could be
may
a
not.
mimic.
Yeah, you never know. The guide
Or a
turns to look
demon.
at us, his eyes seeming to glow from the closeness of his lantern. For the first time, I feel uncomfortable in his presence.
Whoever shelters him will only risk dragging themselves down with him. Leave him.
Margaret is
As if he
staring
was
at the
a
man with something
here
like fear.
before.
She's uneasy, but she doesn't voice her concerns. I'm trying to think of some kind of compromise when the guide speaks again, his voice
If the
cutting.
man comes, then whoever is shielding him will have to remain at a distance from the rest of the group. Far enough that you can't see me. I
won't.
didn't agree to lead this man, and I won't. If you ask me to, I will leave you all behind.
Adrenaline surges through my veins, and I tense up. It's a painful reminder that the guide isn't here to save our lives, but merely to show us the way. We're on our own. Margaret and I frantically share more looks between each other, trying to communicate without words. Neither of us have the desire to speak, be the first one to make a choice. The man is standing now, though still hunched with his arm wrapped around himself, as if expecting a blow. He stares at the ground rather than at us. Because of this, I'm having trouble reading his face. What exactly
Are
happened to
you
him?
well, stranger? Do you know where you
Death.
are and why
I
you're
say we leave
here?
him.
It's a
He
Zambi.
glances up, not at me, but towards me, his eyes resting somewhere near my collarbone.
I'm fine.
Why is he looking
You
at
all
my
can go on your
collarbone?
way. Forget you even saw me here.
Okay.
He's
I
a
will.
vamp.
I can't help but balk at his sheer lack of trepidation. How can he be so quick to leap back into the darkness alone again? He clearly knows the horrors that lie ahead, so how can he be so flippant towards the prospect of returning? He's
Do
been
you
fine on
actually
his
have a
own,
plan?
so...
Or are you just going to resume
He'll be
huddling in a little
fine.
ball as soon as we pass by?
Well, excuse me.
Margaret is blunt and to the point, but her tone doesn't suggest any spitefulness. He gives off a
When
small
you come
chuckle.
across a stranger having an emotional moment, it's not very polite to bring it up. You know, you should have pretended not to see.
Okay, sorry, I'll pretend I did not see that. Margaret's jaw tightens slightly at
I
that.
suppose my question was a tad tactless. Given the situation we're in, however, it couldn't have been helped.
He seems fine now, and a moment ago he was having a breakdown, so that's a little sus. I mean, it can be like that sometimes, but also, like, I don't trust
It'd be
this
like
random man on
It's
the
only a
bridge.
joke.
He smiles hesitantly, making eye contact with each of us for the first time. Margaret lets out a sigh and scrunches her nose. Her reaction makes it pretty clear she's not all impressed with how things are unfolding. I can tell from her expression that she expects he won't be easy to work with. He regards us curiously, catching on to our mixed
You're
responses.
tired of me already?
Yeah, I
Really
am.
outdone myself now.
The man gives a small wave and begins down the
Should
path
you
we
even be
came.
trying to walk? You aren't exactly in the best of states.
He lets out a small
There's
chuckle.
no need to worry about me. I'm perfectly fine going on my own now.
So, I take it that what happened back there is a normal occurrence for you then?
Margaret eyes him curiously, though her mouth is quirked into a slight grin. She doesn't confirm nor deny the question, instead opting to fidget in place awkwardly. Margaret clicks her tongue.
Shouldn't he be following us anyways? Isn't there only one way to the island?
There's probably multiple ways.
I'm not going there.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Margaret seems slightly taken
He
aback.
must have come quite a ways if it was the other shore that he started on.
The man's smile
Good.
grows.
That's not so bad.
No one responds to this remark, unsure of what could be said. The conversation dies down, and there's no question about it. He's going to leave. Okay, we don't even get the choice. I didn't want it. That's fine. I look at Margaret, whose gaze is quietly focused elsewhere. I can't exactly blame her. Being separated from the guide could easily be a death sentence for both people. Still, I could stay behind. This isn't entirely a foregone conclusion. No. I can't risk it. Margaret stares at the man as he leaves. We both watch him drag his little frame down the bridge, quickly fading from sight. I'm gonna stick with Margaret. We had to let him go. We've already suffered the loss of one of our own. The space the man vanished into is dark and silent. We can see and hear nothing of him, not even his footsteps. Margaret tries to pull herself together as best as possible. I follow her lead. We need to get through this somehow, and being weighed down with guilt will only distract us. The guide starts moving again at a quick pace. After a moment's hesitation and one last glance into the truly lifeless fog, we run to catch up to him. We walk onwards in silence. Our party hasn't changed, the stranger was never added to it, so it's not as if it makes sense to miss him, but there's a sense of loss all the same. No one even attempts mirth. I keep thinking I should have done more, should have pushed the guide harder to change his mind, so it's less dangerous to keep the man around. Something, anything, I don't think so. But I have to let this go. I'm not going to forget that man, I'll never forget him, but we still need to get through this.
Don't trust them.
I curl my hands into fists, hoping it'll strengthen my resolve. Well, if we think about it. The first time, Margaret died, but that was it. So he's probably fine, even if we leave him.
Yep.
Unless,
Oh, the guide, yeah.
unless in the first run, he tried to save him, and that's why she died. I curl my hands into fists, hoping it'll strengthen
Could
my
take,
resolve, and
like,
then I
voice
push
through it.
forward. We turn down a different path, and the guide stops. Oh, there's a lot of them. Ahead of us stands a group of prowlers. At the sound of us, they turn their heads in unison, as if they knew we were coming. I inhale.
Not again.
The prowlers wriggle somehow, their skin moving more slowly than it should, sliding across their skeletons. They laugh.
We already lost a lantern and it's only our first day.
How many days does it take to cross this?
Yes, we can't lose a lantern at this
Maybe
point.
it's
We're
the...
almost to the island.
The guide rummages
Great
through
Salt
his
Lake
coat
of
with
the
his
city.
free hand. He pulls out a small pouch, then opens a latch on his lantern. Attentively questions what seems to be the guide for
Will
the
throwing that
what
little thing actually work?
What the guide plans for the situation.
Yes, it will also set the bridge aflame.
Oh, it's gonna
We're
set
going
the
to run.
set the bridge on fire.
What? But what if we aren't fast enough?
I mean,
Gotta,
And you
I mean,
will
if
gotta
I
go
saw
fast.
demons,
We're
I
not
would do the
losing
same
another
thing.
lantern.
Gotta go fast.
Gotta go fast!
The guide steps closer
Gotta
to
go
the prowlers.
faster,
We fall
faster.
into step
Oh,
behind
okay.
him, staying close to his back. He bends his lantern back down until it's lowered to his outstretched arm. The pouch in his hand is set aflame. With a practiced flick of the wrist, he swings the staff back and up. The glass on the lantern snaps
Don't
closed.
get left behind.
Okay, we're running. He takes 3 quick steps, then tosses the pouch. The prowlers are back in the water before the pouch even lands. And soon as it does, the fire starts to lick and curl itself around the wood. The guide breaks into a sprint, and so do the rest of us. The blaze grows, despite the heavy dampness from the lake. These bridges aren't normal bridges, of course that's true. Nothing here is right. Hopefully they won't collapse with the flames. We stay on the guide's heels, almost too close for comfort. If he stops abruptly, we'll all crash into one another, and maybe even fall off the bridge. Then the world tilts. I was mid-stride. When I put my foot down, the bridge isn't where it was. It lurches to one side, either because it was weakened or pushed.
Where to
I
go?
managed to keep my ground, but Margaret falls to the ground. At least I thought that was what happened. She starts pawing the bridge. My glasses fell off. I can't see. The guide, having regained his balance, presses on. He doesn't even bother to look at her. I run to Margaret, scanning the bridge, but there's no sign of her glasses. The flames are growing thicker and closer, the heat life-sucking, close enough to nip at her heels.
Your
I grab
glasses
her
aren't
arm.
here anymore.
Just leave the
You have to
glasses.
go or
You
we'll
can
lose
get
the
new
guide.
glasses. She squints up at me, face paler than ever. She nods and stands, and we start after the guide again. As our storm of feet thunder across the board, a silver sliver begins to rise into view just above the edge of the
What is
water.
that?
Sun? The island? Oh. I squint and suddenly make out the craggy forms of land and earth. I see it. We're almost there. Safety at long last in sight. New energy surges through me. We push ourselves faster, longing to put these godforsaken bridges behind our backs. All at once, the bridge ends and our entire group rushes ashore. Earth, solid earth, a haven from the water. I catch my breath while still moving, even further away from the dark shoreline. I can't believe we actually made it. Even more difficult is the idea that we're only halfway done. We have another day. When night falls once more, we'll have to do it again.
How are you
Yeah.
doing without your glasses?
Damn.
Oh, I'll manage. I have to, after all. I'm not completely blind.
It took 2
thankfully,
days to
so I
cross
can
one
muddle
bridge.
my way through.
Well, it took us one day to cross to this island, but we were trying to get
Oh.
to the other side. And then the guide is there. He moves so smoothly that his steps on the soft sand are nearly silent, and his dusky clothes blend in with the thinning of the
The
night.
sun will rise soon. The fire on the bridge is the only reason this island isn't overrun with prowlers right now. However, they could still pose a threat.
Yeah, they
Is
can
that
still
why you
get us on
decided to
those.
set the bridges on fire? To make the island safer?
No. The guide looks at Margaret for what I suddenly realize might be only the second or third time all night.
Setting the bridges alight isn't an uncommon strategy. It has many uses.
He walks away, Margaret frowning at his retreating form.
Go.
Let's go. Guide takes us to an area a bit further inland, not
Oh,
too far from
Fucker.
Trees partially obscure our location, and there's enough room to watch the coast in case prowlers start to emerge from the water. Essentially, it's a place where an ambush would be hard.
If any of you see anything at all, speak up. We don't want them to sneak up on us.
Almost automatically, each member of the group turns to a different direction. As the sky continues to fade from pale purple to a muted blue, waters stay silent. For the first time, nothing happens. It's a miracle. Suddenly, my chest is lighter and the air is fresher. The first pricks of light appear over the horizon, stinging my eyes after such a long journey through darkness. The sound catches my attention, and I move my focus towards its direction. The guide is opening the latch on his lantern again. He gently, almost respectfully, blows out the light.
We no longer have to worry about the Nixie. It is over for today.
I'm almost unable to keep tears of relief from pouring out at those words. We made it through the night. We survived. No one feels the need to speak.
Congratulations.
We look at each other, an understanding passing between us. When we find our own space, as comfortable as we can get, and lie down for the rest we weren't sure would ever come. My eyes slowly blink open and readjust to the brightness, what little there is. The sun is obscured by a thick layer of fog, making it impossible to estimate. I pop up my elbows and push myself up. The ground is hard and rocky, but that isn't the only reason I'm eager to get on my feet. I check my surroundings. The harsh, craggy earth of the island, interlaced with twisting vines and gnarled branches. Besides me, Margaret is still fast asleep. The guide, however, is nowhere to be seen. I realize I don't recall seeing him lay down with everyone. Likely he left us hours ago. There's a creeping silence here. I can't help but shudder at the hollow, aching feeling inside of me. It refuses to relent. I shift my weight back and forth, unsure of what to do. Memories of last night's harrowing journey flicker through my mind. I notice Margaret begin to stumble. She rises up off the ground with great effort. My mouth opens, then shuts, and after a moment of fumbling, a word finally
Hello.
escapes.
Hello to you.
Margaret greets me as she rubs her eyes. It seems to be due to trouble adjusting to not having her glasses, rather than grogginess. A pocket of quiet descends over
We
us.
should eat something soon. Margaret, do you have enough supplies?
Yes,
can't feel my-
think I'll be alright with what I have.
Hands.
That is good.
It's all just epoxy powder.
If it's foggy, will the monsters still come and get us? Sun's not out,
Probably.
right? Oh, the guide's
That's when
back.
the monsters come out in Silent Hill.
The distinct rustling of the leaves around catches my attention. Guide appears, emerging from the thicket. Margaret seems to be a little uncomfortable at his return. Guide, he nears us and begins
The Nixie will not tread on land in daylight.
Yeah.
However, being near the shoreline is still dangerous. If you leave the center of the island, remain cautious.
We'll just stay in the center of the
Before
island.
the sun sets, I will be in this area. It would
Sounds
be
like a
wise to meet
plan,
me here
girlfriend.
before nightfall.
And just what needs to be done over in those woods that cannot be done in the brush here with the rest of it. Why they didn't do a voice line. That one. Despite Margaret's pointed question, Guide considers his piece here finished.
Probably an inner thought.
No, she said it out loud.
Oh.
It was a question. He turns around and returns to the forested area from which he came. Besides me, Margaret releases a sigh.
Are you alright?
No, I'm not. Nothing is all right. It will never get any better.
Yeah?
Yeah?
Margaret sucks in a breath as she starts to get emotional. Before it could spill out of her, she turns on her heels and walks off in a direction different than the guide's. Quietly, I speak. I'm going to speak, guide. I ball my hands into fists, steel my will, and start advancing in the direction the guide went. I push my way through the branches and reach the other shore of the island.
Oh.
I see the guide with his back towards me. I didn't try to be quiet as I approached. He must
You
have heard
haven't
me.
asked me to leave. Does that mean I can speak to you?
You may say what you like.
When he turns to face me, one feeling comes to the forefront of my mind. Sadness. I feel the tears well in my eyes. After all that's happened, the people who have died, how am I even supposed to talk to someone? He doesn't even seem concerned. He doesn't seem to care about anything.
Why can't I be more like you?
My voice is soft, but by his raised eyebrow it seems the guide
I
heard
do not
me.
want to feel pain or sadness anymore. I'm so tired. I wish I could feel nothing at all.
My head droops and I cover my face and
How
cry.
are you able to go through this every day? Is it nothing more than becoming used to it? I have seen death so many times since becoming a guard, and even before that I was familiar with loss, yet it still hurts so much.
I'm just making
The sting has not dulled at all. I have simply learned to hide it better. And now it seems I cannot even do that.
I cannot stop sobbing. The tears just continue to fall. His disinterest strangely makes it easier to let my true self show. Although he remains silent, I can still feel the guide near. He has not abandoned me. After some time, I manage to stifle the tears and look up at him. His eyes are distant, looking out across the expanse of sin.
You do not need practice. You need a new perspective. You can see 1,000 deaths and still feel pain at each one, so long as they hold meaning for you.
How can I do otherwise? Losing one's life is a tragedy.
There are people dying even as we speak. You do not care about them.
I do not have to see those with my own eyes.
But you can still decide that those deaths are not relevant to you. Or perhaps you choose to feel that whether a person dies sooner or later makes no difference. Or even that death is to be preferred over life in this world.
Sure enough.
At least they have peace. Their death may even be beneficial to others. Any such idea would be fine. Pick what is easiest for you to swallow.
Sounds cold, but he's simply giving what I asked for. I'm not able to stop myself inquiring
What
further.
is your perspective?
He pauses a moment in
The
thought.
villages in this area pay me so that I am able to stay and lead people when needed. But making a living is not the reason I do so. Neither is it so I can help those who wish to cross. I stay here so that I can make certain as few people attempt the journey as possible.
What?
Because he tells them that he won't take them.
I have decided to believe that I make a difference in the
He is
amount
the
of
River
those who come in
Styx.
contact
Kill him.
with Sinlos.
He's
so
the
long as I
Ferryman.
am here, others rarely try to cross on their own. They either wait for the few trips I am able to make, or don't go at all. I can also turn someone away if I feel they
Very
are unfit.
valid.
My one hope in this life is that someday people will never attempt to cross the bridges again.
For a moment, I can feel the genuine emotion of
It is a
his
futile
words.
dream, I know. It is impossible to convince everyone.
Then the feelings are gone.
For those who do insist upon going, well, if their life is worth risking to save a few days of travel time, then it isn't worth very much at all. Understand?
Yes.
Fine.
He closes his eyes and thoughtlessly brushes a few loose strands of his hair behind his ear. He seems to be losing some information. For some reason, it's hard for me to see
Discomposure.
the guide act so normal. It makes me realize how I never truly saw him for what he was. It's not your fault.
What?
The guide turns back to me,
I didn't
incredulous.
want someone to die. I didn't.
My words get choked behind
You're
tears.
just human. You cannot do more than anyone else. You cannot fix what is wrong with these bridges, or stop dangers from appearing, or make it so people will not have reasons to cross. You simply do what you can, like anyone else.
I feel anger beginning to mix with
It
my
is the
sorrow.
world that needs to change, not you. No matter what choice
Yeah,
you
you
make,
go,
there will
girl.
be suffering and hardships. All this time, I said I did not wish
Righteous
to leave
fury.
anyone alone. But I have done so from the beginning. You are not my enemy.
The guide stares at me blankly. It seems as though he may be intentionally stripping himself of the human qualities he showed me moments
We are
before.
not allies either. We are merely two strangers, walking the same path.
That's valid.
Regardless, I will be there for you.
Again, he watches me without
You
speaking.
should protect yourself.
He moves from me to stare across the water. The conversation is over. No matter, I will be strong for the both of
I'm
us.
going to see how everything is on the island.
I turn and leave. I feel As I turn and leave, I feel comforted that, at least in a small way, I understand the guide better. I head through the wooded part of the island. There isn't anything that could be called a path, but I managed to pick my way through the bush quite well. When I step into another clearing, I notice Margaret sitting quietly at the base of a tree. Margaret begrudgingly lifts her head as I approach, enabling me to see that her face is damp and tear-stained, while her eyes are red and puffy. She's been crying. I shift uncomfortably
Has
on my
something
feet.
happened?
Everything is fine. I came to check on you.
Well,
Also been crying.
that's nice.
We're all crying together. She speaks somewhat curtly, but at least she no longer seems as
I'm happy
depressed.
to report that everything's in order on this front.
I'm glad.
Of course, I cannot fully believe that. Margaret isn't saying what's actually on her mind, but I have no way to truly read.
Is that everything?
I suppose it is.
Her words come out slowly and hesitantly, as though she might change her mind if I bide my time. I want to do more, but I can't think of what else I can do.
Then
for her.
goodbye.
If you need anything, I will be close by.
Yes, thank you. I'm sure I'll see you soon.
The response is sincere. It's enough to ease some of the worry. I smile, though weakly. With nothing else to say, I take my leave. I find that I've been pacing back and forth for quite some time. I finished my check a while ago, so I've nothing left to do but aimlessly wander. I'm overcome with restlessness. This island may be safer than the bridges, but that is far from enough to ease my mind. Behind me, leaves rustle. I turn to face the noise with noticeable unease. What I see is the guide. I blink in surprise. I didn't expect to run into him. From the look on his face, he didn't expect me.
Hello again. Is everything well?
Nothing has changed.
I consider his
That
words.
is the best we can all hope for under these circumstances.
Guide nods.
Yes. It won't be much longer before it's time to depart. I will wait here for the time being.
Fine.
Guide is a strange figure. Oftentimes it feels as though he has scarcely any presence at all, and other times he makes me feel apprehensive. In this instance, however, I don't mind his company whatsoever. We wait in somber silence until the sun begins to vanish.
It is
from the
time to
sky.
go to the meeting point.
Young love.
We walk together. The lack of conversation does not weigh on me whatsoever. There's nothing to say in this moment, and there's no nagging pressure to fulfill. When we arrive, the spot is empty. The guide quietly gazes out into the forest. I find myself closely observing him. It surprises me how accustomed I've become to his. As I watch him, I feel a sense of resolve. The guide has made this trip more times than one could count. I need to remember that this is possible. He can survive. After not too long, Margaret appears. Upon seeing me, she tries her best to greet me, though it's clear she's not
Hello,
doing
Kika.
well. I wave back at her. The group now complete, the mood becomes tense. I can no longer ignore the fact that it's nearly time to leave again. However, I refuse to let go of this newfound determination. All three of us wait in silence until darkness overtakes the land. Night settles like a shroud over the land, every inch of the world now covered in unrelenting darkness. Suddenly there's a gurgling. The water parts as the bridges of Sinlos rise powered by some unnatural force, creaking like they might fall apart. I feel an inexplicable pounding like a hammer in the back of my head, beating faster and heavier than my own heart. I clench my teeth to stop it from churning my stomach.
We must go now.
The guide doesn't wait for any replies, briskly starting in the direction of the shore. Margaret and I match his pace. I can feel the air weighing on us, a sensation that slows our steps despite being arrested. Something hovers in my mind, the mirrored memory of the beginning of last night's journey. One day ago feels like a lifetime past. The thick, inky water sloshes reluctantly off the boards, bleeding back into the lake, until finally it becomes still. A shudder crawls over my body as I place my foot on the boards, but I quickly shake it off. I have no other option. We have to go through this again. All tense as day-old corpses, we walk over the bridges. One more time. In silence. The only sound that accompanies us in the thick lapping is the thick lapping water of the bridge. Margaret marches ahead of me so that I can't view her face. However, even from the back, I feel something's on her mind. I decide not to ask about it. It wasn't meant for me to hear. I feel as though barely any time has passed when it's explained that half the night has crept by. We encounter a few sunken bridges which forced us to reroute, while other paths were rotten enough to make us stagger our steps. However, the biggest threat is eerily absent, the Prowlers. I haven't seen more than shadowy glimpses of them down the other paths, and even those may have simply been tricks of the fog. I feel I may have been even more on edge tonight than the last. Judging by Margaret's tenseness, she isn't set at ease by their lack of presence either.
Why?
I whisper the question softly, almost silently, as I scan left and right across the impossibly empty bridges for any sign of movement. I ponder whether they're still weary from consuming blaze that lit up the night yesterday, or if there are less dragging themselves across the bridge than usual, because many have already gotten what they wanted. My skin crawls with the touch of icy fingers at the thought, and I can't control the sharp shiver that travels down my spine. Margaret catches my concern as she slows her walking.
It's very quiet out here. I haven't heard anything but our footsteps since we started.
Yes.
She seems a tad disappointed by my brusque answer.
Breast? I'm
Brusque?
sorry about your breasts.
No, but Margaret quickly refocuses and continues walking. As time passes by, we continue to see nothing but more bridges and fog. Besides me, Margaret eyes the guide sharply. She begins to question him.
How do you know where you're going?
He just knows. The tone is harsh and clipped. He doesn't answer, prompting
I
her
heard
to
that it's
continue.
impossible to create a map of the bridges because they can change. I can understand that since I've seen them sink partway through the night myself.
But I'm curious, how exactly are you able to tell that we're going the correct
Just
way?
based on vibes.
Because I remember.
Remember what exactly?
He huffs to herself at the notion.
All these bridges look exactly the same.
But they aren't the same.
He replies immediately this time, addressing Margaret's line of questioning head on, despite having his back
How
to
many
us.
boards there are, the angle they curve at, the width. There are ways to tell them apart. It isn't the bridges alone either. There are signs in the water and even with the way the air feels.
He knows his shit.
As little as there is,
Fuck.
everything here can be a marker, as long as one is actually committed to keeping it in mind.
I see.
Despite wanting to dismiss the guide, she does seem focused enough to be making mental notes on everything he's explained about the maze. Slowly falls into step with me, seemingly satisfied with the partial conversation having with
It
the
is
guide.
still terribly difficult to navigate this dreadful place without my glasses.
Good thing you don't need your glasses, just follow his
You're
lantern.
going to be alright.
I
Just
firmly
follow the noise.
reassure her,
You can
however
want that.
she merely scoffs
Perhaps
again,
not with a leader like him.
being a hater. Her tone grows more
I wonder
annoying.
how many people have needlessly died because he was the only person around to show them the way.
Yeah, fewer than those who have died without him. She raises her eyebrow and her frown
I
tightens.
cannot say with certainty that the guide has always made wise decisions. However, there isn't enough evidence for us to state that he takes his position lightly, or that one would be better off without him.
He pauses for a moment, entertaining the viewpoint.
Perhaps. I still think that things could be far better.
Finishing that thought, she resumes her normal pace again. Our progress continues steadily, and we still encounter no significant difficulties. Margaret has drifted further away from me, closer to the guide. He turns his head slightly
You're
to address her.
following too closely.
I expect her to take a step back and nothing to come for this, but instead Margaret dismissively snipes
I'm not
back.
at all within an arm's reach of you.
The guide abruptly stops walking, and Margaret accidentally ends up getting even closer to
You're
him.
close enough. Stay further behind.
He's far firmer in his demand this time around, highlighting how clearly the point was made. He regards the guide defiantly and stands her ground. He narrows his eyes at the turn
If
of
you're not
events.
happy with how I lead, then continue on by yourself.
I start to feel concern creep in. The lack of trust between them has grown dangerously high. With the way they're speaking, I fear it could escalate further.
We should remain as a single group.
Maybe she would have died earlier
Margaret
because
ignores
she keeps
me.
fucking annoying the guide.
Yeah, maybe. Well, if it comes down to it, she can go too. We're gonna make it across this bridge.
Sacrifice her. She's not important.
Margaret ignores me completely while remaining
What happened
unfazed
when
by the
you
guide,
lost?
directly
A
addressing the
village burned down?
concerns she had.
Huh.
Yeah.
It's rather hard to respect a leader who eavesdrops
That's
on
it.
conversations.
There's plenty of villages.
Eavesdropping.
made
What's
what
wrong
you-
with eavesdropping? His jaw clenches as she tests his
Either you are to
patience.
lead yourself, or you will follow my path. Those are your choices. Say which one it will be.
Oh, so both options are to die then.
Aye, aye, aye. The biting comment makes me wince. As I feared, the situation is spiraling further down, and any words to stop its descent cannot be found in my
If you
racing
enter
thoughts.
these bridges, all you should expect is death. That is no secret.
Guide continues, annoyance leaking into his
You
voice.
think that the results would have been different if only I had said more or did something differently. But that is not true. The conclusion would be exactly the same. If Lou hadn't died when he did, he would have been
who's
lost at some
Lou?
other point during the trip.
Cindy Lou Who?
Oh, this is why she's mad. There's background. There's lore.
Lou?
Yes, Lou was his name. I had spoken with him in the past. He wanted to cross the bridges. I had deemed him unfit. He was far too desperate and unprepared. There's no helping someone like that.
The guy sounds even more agitated as he
That
elaborates.
sounds like excuses to me.
Oh, whoa, whoa. Music got fighty. She must know this Lou person and she's mad about it. Margaret raises her
You're
voice.
adept enough to traverse these bridges so often that you've memorized the minute details of them, but you couldn't help him? Why are you the only one who gets to avoid death?
Because
here?
people don't listen to him like you. You're trying to argue with him. If you just follow what he's telling you to do, then you'll be fine. You dingus. Guide's face twists into a vicious snarl. He shouts.
I have died!
Oh, he has died. Was he come back?
I have no life to give! Everything I am, everything I could
No one
have
can
been,
No.
surrendered to
No,
this
just
thing.
kidding. He just
That's the
this is his
only
life.
reason to stand before you now.
He has no life outside of being the guide. That's why he doesn't have a name.
I can show you the way, and I can give you advice.
He's been a
on
guide
how to
so
survive the
long, he
perils
lost
of
his name.
this. That is
So
all
Yeah.
I'm able to offer. Is that not enough?
Let's name him. Let's name
What
him
else
To
do you
the
want?
Forest.
What name in him was that?
Kindness, sympathy. It's been far too many years since I was capable of giving anything like that.
He finally stops to catch his breath, though the emotion in his eyes still shines intently. There's no response from either of us. I feel gut-wrenching sadness for the guide. He deserves to have as good a life as any of us. An agonizing silence permeates the air. No one dares to even. Tension is cut as boards beneath me start to creak. My eyes dart down. The bridge is sinking rapidly. Instinctively, I jump backwards, but the new section of the bridge groans horribly as it too starts to tilt and fall. Why did I jump backwards? I should jump forwards. They keep getting further and further away with each disappearing platform I move off of. I look up at Margaret's frantic call. My chest tightens when I see her and the guide on what has become the other side of a small chasm. I leap back just in time as the bridge under me snaps like a twig. Glancing over again, they keep getting farther and farther away with each disappearing platform I move off of. Dread creeps up my neck and I nearly lose control of my footing once I realize what's happening. Desperately stumbling backwards. Stop going backwards! I finally manage to gain my balance. I use this to leap far enough back that the bridge I land on doesn't immediately start to fall apart under my weight. In another 3 swift steps, I'm finally on sturdy wood. The bridges reluctantly stop shifting and settle. The only trace left of what was once a huge section of bridge, the few splintered boards floating in the murky water. The lake has consumed it. Somehow I'm not surprised. Regaining my bearings, I face what has become my circumstances. I'm now separated from Margaret and the guide by a far wider gorge than anyone could leap. My throat goes bone dry as I teeter at the end of the bridge, mind wildly scrambling for a solution that doesn't come. Just make the leap. I lock
make
onto
the leap.
Margaret's face. We know we have to make the leap. We know this now. I lock into Margaret's face. She's completely aghast, wringing her hands and opening her mouth wordlessly. She has little idea of what to do with herself. I'm not quite sure what to do with myself either. Margaret keeps her eyes on me, but then I can faintly hear her address the guide. I'm too far off to grasp what she's asking, but I get the impression she's seeing if there's another way. The guide turns to me. He's completely cooled down from the earlier interaction, back to his same placid expression. We lock eyes. He doesn't release me from his gaze for a few heartbeats. He says one word. Judging from the look of heartbreak on Margaret's face, I can only assume it was no. There's no way back to them. As I watch the two discuss my fate, unable to say anything, fear starts to crawl over me. My arms run cool to cold to freezing, not long before the rest of my body follows. Tears strip down Margaret's face. I can see the delicate lantern light playing off of them, even from here. Guide's voice echoes loudly across the waters separating me.
Go back and take the next bridge you come across that goes west.
West.
There may be enough time for you to find your own way.
I blink, taken aback for a moment, before I quickly regain my composure. That's right, this isn't over. I still have my lantern with me. Prowlers are less active, and if the guide says it's possible, it could be true. I nod solemnly at his words and yell back.
Don't wait for me.
Take the west. Margaret tries and fails to dry her eyes as she looks at me helplessly from across the waters. I smile forlornly as the wind whips against my back. I speak
I need
softly.
to go.
There's no way she could have heard me, yet I'm confident that the sentiment got across. I spin on my heels and run back the way we came, searching for the bridge the guide said to take. I can only hope that we all safely reunite before the night ends. I spare a brief glance behind me, however there's not a trace of them or even the dead end I was stranded at. With a painful contracting of my heart, I realize that I'm truly alone now. Quickly, I shake off the thought and refocus my attention on what's in front of me. The first branching of a path comes into reach. I slow down to a calmer pace and begin my progress down the western bridge. It would be reckless to consider going against the guide's direction. I walk at a moderately brisk pace, not wanting to risk tripping or running out of energy in a moment where I need it. And the eeriness of the lake was not. If the eeriness of the lake was disconcerting before, now it's overwhelming. The blizzard-like fog drifting over the waters limits my vision to the span of my arms. The utter silence was a comfort, despite how otherworldly it felt. But the whispering of the lake has started to stir now. I gulp despite myself. They've noticed me. As their chattering grows, I consider briefly if the others hear them as well, or if they've come out specifically because I'm on my own. I straighten my back and walk more surely. I cannot let them believe I'm an easy target. Even as I consider keeping my sword in hand, but it doesn't seem entirely likely they would realize it's something that could hurt them. Keep my mind from wandering to dark places. I count my steps like we used to in training. 1, 2, 3, 4. Despite my best efforts, things are starting to get to me. My worries wash over me, causing painful twinges underneath my clothes that make me jerk and twitch like a fly-bitten horse. The whispering inhuman voices, the feeling of vulnerability, the horrible thought of being hopelessly lost, all melded together, is consuming me. My pace breaks from the steady rhythm of my counting set. It quickens more as I start to succumb to fear.
Consumption, Ursa.
Something. My brisk steps turn into long, frantic strides. Something in me whispers, "Faster, go faster, don't let them catch you," and I listen. I break into a run. Like moving on landmines, flashes of fear explode in my mind and drive my feet harder, faster, stronger along the path. Until suddenly my sense of reason returns and I stop dead. My chest rises and falls with deep heaving breaths as I try to calm myself down. The monsters erupt into an inharmonious chorus of what sounds to be wicked laughs. I fight the urge to shout back at the creatures. This feels like a nightmare I will never wake up from. I take another breath and I resume my measured progress. It's difficult to tell how much time has passed. It must have been hours. However, judging by how much energy I've expended. Since the time I recomposed myself, I've not stopped walking for a second. Despite how much distance I've put behind me, the twisting route still feels endless. I weave through the labyrinth, not allowing myself to dwell on the whispering creatures hidden below my feet. Suddenly, from out in the nothingness, a faint light appears in the distance. It floats peacefully through the fog, as if beckoning me towards it. The worry that my tired eyes are playing tricks on me, my mind drives me to furiously rub them and look again. There it remains, drifting alone. Are the bridges ablaze again? No, the light isn't growing. Could it be the shore? Mesmerized, I turn to sprint towards the phantom light. The shine gets brighter and sharper until the source becomes clear. It's the lantern of the guide. He's here. Where's Margaret? My eyes widen incredulously as I stop in front of him. I cannot believe this. We were able to reunite in this maddening world of fog. No matter the shock, I notice immediately that he stands alone. Margaret is not with him. The weight of what that means hits me like a physical blow. I can only imagine one word. I can only manage.
On the shore.
Made it, yay! What, how? A fountain of questions fills up my mind. Or is he just saying that? Is he just saying that to stop me from having a breakdown? Is she actually on the shore? Because he said, just imagine that the guy, he's just on the shore waiting for you. What, how? A fountain of questions fills up my mind, yet I'm no longer capable of releasing any kind of sound. Seeing the struggles I'm having in processing what's happening, the guide reaffirms the fact of the matter.
We reached the other side. No one has died.
Fractions of tears form in the corners of my eyes, and for a brief moment I'm completely overjoyed. Margaret made it. She's alive, safe. Now that it's obvious that I fully understand, the guide unceremoniously turns around and heads down the bridge.
We need to move quickly.
I blink several times, unsure of how to react to what could be considered a miracle. I instinctively follow to avoid feeling left behind. Our journey continues. The bridges, the lake, the destination, and the guide, they're all the same as they ever were. Yet for me, nothing feels the same. I've lost my sense of grounding. In this strange new situation, talking to the guide does not seem especially daunting. It makes it possible for me to finally speak aloud what has been lurking in my mind.
Are you here?
Came back for me. That's nice. If he truly made it to shore, what would compel him to return to the maze? It's a risk he of all people would know is great. He answers without turning. I'm not allowed to see his face, but I get the sense that he is frowning.
Do you assume the death of a traveler is my first choice? To have any worth as a guide of this lake, you cannot be a fool. But neither can you be a coward. I knew that you would still be here.
The guide leaves it there. Again, my eyes well up with tears that threatened to spill over. He believed I would survive. He put his trust in my abilities enough to come find me.
Thank you.
I watch the guide's smooth gait as we continue on. Countless thoughts I want to tell him dance around my mind. However, he is the one to break the growing silence. That is surprising in and of itself. What he actually says is
Would you
even more
like to
so.
tie a string between us?
Wow. Didn't he say that he didn't want anybody close to him within grabbing distance?
Tying a string from my wrist to yours will ensure we don't drift
He
too
doesn't
far
like
apart,
being grabbed.
and is a reminder you're not alone. If someone is taken, the string will snap. It is calming without putting either person in further danger. It cannot be done when there are many people. The lines would become tangled. Since it is only the two of us, it is an option I can offer you.
He flicks his eyes back to search for my response. Yeah, sure. You can do that. I stand awkwardly dumbfounded at the offer. Somehow the idea makes me nervous, but I cannot argue its benefits. The guide ceases walking as well and dives a hand into his coat. I fidget in place, trying to remain alert. Why has the music changed? After rummaging for a moment, he brings the spool of string out of his pocket. The guide pivots his body and tosses it to me. I manage to catch the spinning spool in the air as it attempts to unravel. I'll do as instructed, tying the knot tight. Giving him a signal, I toss the string back across the length of the bridge to him. He creates a thin brown lifeline between us. He catches it dexterously with his free hand. Turning this to the side for a moment, he rests his staff in the crook of his arm. He snaps the string, throwing the rest of it away before he locks the other end into his own wrist. The guide gathers a section of our link in his hand and tugs on it, making sure my side isn't too loose. He stares down in the path at me and we make eye contact. As he gazes into me, I notice that there isn't any emptiness in his eyes, only strength. When did he change? I begin to wonder if I was the one who had changed in order to see what's always there. He shifts his focus away, and the action pulls me forcibly back into reality. I wait for the guide to get proper hold of his staff, and we begin walking once more. The whispers of the lake ring loudly into the night. Occasionally, I steal a look down at the string. Its effect is having on me already is quite remarkable. Seeing it connected from my wrist to his does make me feel far better. It hasn't made us safer, but the dread of being left alone again has faded. I find myself wishing I could get those thoughts across to him. However, I'm aware enough to know this is not the time for those kinds of things. Oh, we're back to the sad music. The whispers die down until they've completely dissipate like steam in the coal. The remaining sounds in my sphere of awareness are now our footsteps and my measured breathing. Earlier, the guide mentioned that talking amongst one another was fine as long as you remained aware of what was happening. I wondered whether he would mind conversing. It isn't to divert worries like it was on the first night. It's that I would like to hear him speak further. The more I've learned about him, the more interested I've become.
Young love?
Do I talk to him or do I stay silent?
Yes, talk to him. Talk to him.
Yes.
Romance him.
Is it
romance the guide.
still appropriate to speak?
Only because it gives
If
me a
so,
break from
I
narrating.
would welcome a conversation with you.
He is silent for a time. The anticipation wraps itself taut around my neck as I wait for
I
his reply.
have a name.
He does have a name.
What?
What's his name?
At
He's
the
about to tell
beginning, when
us.
I explained that silence was not necessary. Your
He's
first
gonna tell
comment
us.
was asking my name. I lied
In
then.
the next episode.
I do have a name.
I find myself at a loss for words. It's such a small thing, and yet it feels momentous. He has a name, lied to me about it, and is admitting to the lie he got away with. And he remembered my question, even through the chaos. Without persuasion, he
I do
unveils
not
more.
wish to share it.
Oh, that's okay.
Explaining why is also undesirable.
That's fine. We can just
Thus,
make
I've
up a
come
name
to
for you
tell
still.
others I simply don't have one. It's surprising how easily others accept something as unusual as not having a name.
Despite facing away from me, I feel his last line was spoken through a smile. Still, it is admittedly quite strange. Even if someone is unnamed at birth, there is nothing stopping them from choosing their own. I grow red-faced at how that thought never occurred to me all this time. It wasn't degrading, but pointing that out may have been an intentional jab at my expense. He doesn't speak further, and the delicate pleasantries between us evaporate. His silence isn't the sort caused by a lack of topics, rather it's pensive. He's thinking on something. I wait for him. I would rather let him finish his thought than rush off to fill the void with just any words. And he does finish.
It is easier to leave someone calling for help when they aren't pleading to you with your name.
Yeah, that's fair. Less personal. In the back of my mind, I worried it had to be something like that. I don't bother asking him the obvious burning question. If he wanted me to know, he would have said it. He's still afraid to give me his name. I go with the next option
How
instead.
long have you been known as the guide?
I cannot say for certain. The past is something of a blur to me. Keeping count of time is difficult when so little changes on Sinlos. I imagine it must have been several years.
Guy couldn't be significantly older than I am. Such a large part of his life belongs to this lake. I tried to give the dour thought a positive light.
Very few would be able to manage that position with so few years behind them. You are highly talented.
Just like my father.
Father was also a guide. Oh, this is a turn in the conversation I had not
I
expected.
recall hearing many similar comments back when I spoke with those who knew Garvin.
Garvin, your father?
Garvin the Exemplar led his people to so many victories. He is a genuine hero to my village. I admit, it is curious to speak with his progeny.
Oh, you are his son. Wait, we knew this already. Right, because they called him a bastard. I forgot. Sorry. He actually is a bastard.
You are
right,
not.
Right.
I am not Garvin's son.
I thought you were
He'd tell
joking.
you so were he still alive.
I flinch at his words and immediately regret mine. I spoke so brazenly. It was nothing but thoughtless. I ready apologies, however, there isn't an opportunity to even open my mouth before he
I know
adds
that
more.
when I was very young, I had no one to help me. I was to take care of myself. One day, I decided to travel to the shores of Sinlos, where Garvin was. No one attempted to stop me.
So you crossed the lake yourself.
After many years on the battlefield, Garvin claimed territory in the area and founded villages. He wanted to understand
So the bridges
mystery
are
of
not
the
made
bridges,
by
or
the
perhaps
people,
find
they
another way
just
to
show up.
cross. To him, the dangers were
kinda
in the
sus.
fight.
It's like
Your
the
purpose.
upside
He was
down.
deeply wrong.
Hmm.
Sinlos
Or not the
is
missing
far more
bridges,
than
the
that.
missing.
There was a
No,
presence
fuck.
residing in the
I
lake
can't
that they didn't truly
The upside down
understand at the
stairs.
time.
There we go.
Upside down.
I didn't like what was happening. I
you
tried to
never heard of the
convince
upside down
Garvin and his
stairs? Yeah,
men
so
to break
apparently
their
you're in-
encampment and move on.
Arcs. People go up them, disappear, and then come back dead or changed.
Oh. Whether they come back dead? How you
Oh.
gonna come back dead?
They just appear dead.
You fall down the stairs as a corpse.
You fall down.
Yeah, your
stairs, you enter
your corpse just
back.
comes tumbling down the steps. Oh no, they came back dead.
I don't know,
At
Sheriff.
first
They're all
assumed
there right
I was
now, man.
merely a strange, overly fearful child from one of the nearby villages. However, with my persistence in getting him to go somewhere safe and the way I looked, it didn't take long for the rumors to start.
Rumors.
Garvin did all he could to snuff out the belief that I was his child. To this day, I wonder if that was the reason he refused to listen to me, or anyone else who began to think leaving might be for the best. After several weeks of investigation, Garvin walked out onto the bridges as he had done many times prior. He brought with him a long rope which he tied to the dock. Usually, he was able to return from his brief
Whoops.
trips without any issue. However, that night, he never returned.
Huh?
His men pulled in the rope and found there was no one at the end. The rope was slashed through. That was when the creatures got their title, Nixie. The loss of Garvin the Exemplar was significant. Many years passed before any large effort was made to approach the lake again. During that time, I retreated from the public eye. It would have been too much for me to hold on to what Garvin left behind. That life wouldn't last, for eventually interest in Sinlos as a connector between villages on opposite sides was ignited. I could not ignore it. I made my return to society to continue what I started. Despite Garvin's view on me, everyone from the original endeavor recognized me as his son. I was allowed to be directly involved as a member of the group.
Yeah, and
There
you
were new
recent.
attempts to cross the bridges.
This one's
I was the first
dead.
to survive it. All who were on the journey with me were lost. I left whoever had difficulties to the maze. It was a seemingly endless night. Death was at every turn. However, turning this back was not an option any longer. They were now willing to accept the loss of a few if it could mean success in the end. I cannot criticize them for it. I was willing to accept the same for my own cause. I continued to cross the lake solely to show people firsthand the horrors. I told myself that I was to survive the trips at all costs. If I didn't, what would become of my hope for the future? The ones who did not live to tell the tale were an inevitability I did not turn away from. My remorselessness, innate talent, and luck were what enabled me to make it across each time. And then it came
He
to
sure
be
is
that
talking
no
a
one
lot.
who knew of what lies in Sinlows
Someone
wanted
that said
to
that
cross
you gotta
without
still
me.
pay attention to your
My
surroundings.
experience was
Maybe you should
invaluable.
stop talking.
I used that to my advantage.
Focus on his
He's
surroundings.
neurodivergent. He can
He
do
can
everything
tell
at the
me.
same
He can
time.
tell me his life story when we get to land.
They wanted a way to cross the lake, and I could give it to them. I took my position as a guide.
I don't
and the
want
rest
him
of
to
the
end up
group returned
dying.
to protect their villages from the many other threats that plague this land.
He knows the area, you
It was
don't. That's why
considered
you're
a success.
pay attention. Remember, he was
The
running off
guide
without you.
shakes his head, ending his story. I have trouble responding immediately. It is much to take in. Eventually, I do manage to respond.
Appreciate you sharing all of that with me.
So how's your relationship with your parents?
Like IRL.
No. The conversation you're having.
It has been too long since I have explained myself.
Well, his
to
dad
You
is
go through his
dead,
whole
so-
backstory. She's like,
What happened then should not be a mystery.
that doesn't stop you from asking.
And yet,
So how's your
it is
relationship with your
difficult
parents?
for
You
me to
respond,
speak of.
were you not listening?
He doesn't say anything more, however, I get a forlorn impression from him. I can see a whisper of it in his eyes briefly before he turns away. I'm not sure how close we are to land, but we've definitely made progress at a steady rate. I find my vision drifting down to the string between the two. It delicately sways to the rhythm of our steps. It eases my mind. The Nixie grow louder again, their whispers ringing in a eerie chorus on both sides of the bridge. Between their chatter, I hear what I believe is a sigh from the guide. The sound of my name spoken so irritably catches me off guard. Despite how serious he seemed in that moment, the guide doesn't continue further. I wait. Still not another word. It's unusual for the guide to second-guess himself in such a way. I'm at a loss for how to react. Maybe he just wanted me to pay attention. I don't know. Does he, of all people, need encouragement to continue, or would it merely be an annoyance? I'm not going to say anything. Seems he truly has no desire to continue. I have no right to push the issue. The two of us keep pace as we cross bridge after bridge. Occasionally I catch sight of a prowler down another pathway. That's the closest to danger we've...
A prowler?
That's
Oh no,
the
kill
beasts. Light begins to filter through the darkness,
going to
illuminating the
run.
fog.
We can still make it.
We gotta run to the shore. I tense at his words, but nod firmly. There's no gradual increase of pace. The two of us dash down the bridges, frantically as the sun rises higher and higher. The silhouette of land comes into view in the distance at the end of the bridges, practically rushes towards us. Seconds later, we are free of them. I feel my feet plunge into the sandy shore. I nearly collapse as we get away from the waterline. I struggle to catch my breath. The guide lightly crouches, using his staff to support himself. He still takes a moment to reassure me, explaining through gasps that Margaret could not remain here on the shore, because it would have been too unsafe. Do we think that Margaret actually made it across or no?
Yes.
I don't know. My legs quiver below me as the adrenaline rushes out of my body. I rest quietly for a few moments, taking time to allow my breathing and emotions to settle down. Despite my exhaustion, I feel touched as I'm reminded by just how much guide risks coming back out to find me. I'm so grateful to have reached this far, and I'm just as glad that he survived. Tears begin to stream down my cheek. The guide straightens himself out with one more deep breath. I smile at him as we catch eyes. I'm amazed when he, ever so slightly, returns it. Aw, we're hugging now!
Oh.
The sight is enough to rob me of my better judgment. I close the
Young
remaining distance
love.
between us and wrap my arms around us, and then all of a sudden, the monster reaches up and grabs my ankle, and we both go into the ocean. We fall and we die. The end.
Wait,
His eyes widen.
actually?
No. His eyes
Oh.
widen and he stiffens in my embrace. I rest my head gently against his shoulder and begin to cry anew. Between my sobs, I manage to speak.
We made it.
Yes.
I hold him for just a little longer, reveling in the joy that is finally over and we're all both alright. I'm aware I'm lingering, so I let go of him, making sure to step back some at the same time. He in turn puts even more distance between us. He pointedly looks away in a manner that can only be seen as bashful. I start to feel heat rise to my cheeks and likewise look away. I survey our surroundings instead. My thoughts slowly begin to format themselves properly. Since Margaret is not here, I can't help but wonder where she will be going now. Inevitably, my mind also drifts to those who did not make it here, the ones that no one will be able to see again. A sinking feeling grows in the pit of my stomach. The guide's nervousness has calmed, and his cold glare has returned as sharp as it ever was. He speaks to me with a distant tone.
You cannot stay. Even if we've left the night behind us, this place
You were
is
doing
not safe.
so well.
And now there is nothing here for you.
Doing so
Way
well.
to kill
what?
the mooder, son.
What did I do?
He stopped hugging him.
Oh. I stand up stock straight and turn to face the guide directly. He grabs hold of the thread that's been connecting us all this time and snaps it. The symbolism of the gesture is not lost.
When you
on me.
leave, I ask that you share your experience with those who might wish to cross the lake. Let them know the toll it takes. I cannot say this to most because
Okay,
they
I'll
may
tell them
question
not
my
to cross the
commitment. But I do not believe you will. If you are willing, I would like to have your support in my foolish dream of keeping others away from Sinlos.
I hope. Regardless of how he delivered the message, I'm moved by the
I
sincerity in
will.
it.
I will do whatever I can to ensure no one I know takes the journey.
He gives me the barest hint of a smile. I'm acutely aware of the terrible circumstances surrounding this experience. It drags my spirit down again. Still, if the guide can smile and thank me, then I should at least reciprocate. He turns his gaze downwards, a faint smile having not yet faded. I hope his goal will be achieved one day. I teeter in place
The goal of
uncomfortably. Finally, I steel myself and take a breath to force my words out.
Like to see you again. One day.
You can't.
I cannot. His response is immediate and severe. That reaction doesn't surprise me, nor does it put any kind of damper on my
I won't
determination.
attempt to cross the bridges. I will only come to meet you.
His expression tightens
And
slightly.
when will you do so? While I am asleep during the day so I can guide at night? When I am on the island during a crossing?
Wow,
Or will you attempt to have a
jeez.
discussion
Maybe I
with me while
will leave a
traveling
note
through
for
what will
you, and you
likely
can
be your
answer,
last
or I
journey?
can wait at either end of it and wait for you to get to the other side. With each question he poses, his frustration grows. I match his expression with a hard stare
I
of
will
my
find
own.
a way.
There is no way. You have to move on.
Yeah.
Life does not exist as long as you remain in Sinlos. It is a purgatory residing on the edge of death.
Then what about you? You deserve a life of your own, same as anyone else. I don't understand.
He merely shakes
It
his
is
head.
too late. The dead cannot be revived.
As if to illustrate his own point, the light drains from his face and becomes an image of
Leave
emptiness.
this place and never come back. Please.
I stare at him hard before lowering my head. I shouldn't be doing this. I'm being unreasonable. Doesn't matter what I would like for the guide. It's his decision. All I'm doing is being selfish.
I'm sorry. That was out of hand.
He doesn't answer me. I look up from the ground, my face
I will
serious
inform the
again.
village I'm heading to and my own that the bridges are not to be crossed.
He looks into my eyes for a heartbeat before nodding, satisfied with my
Goodbye.
answer.
Thank you for your guidance. I am grateful.
My voice drops to slightly above a whisper. He doesn't react to the request. I wait for a moment, then start walking into the forest. There is a lump in my throat. I know that once I step away from this lake, I will never see him again. That fact is a painful gouge in my chest. We were with each other for only a short time, but I cannot deny that he has had a greater effect on me than almost anyone I have ever met. I allow myself to look back one last time. There he is. The guide is looking at me with a quiet, solemn expression. Watching him stand all alone on that shore, appearing the way he does, he seems But it is abundantly clear that this is his honest wish. That somehow makes it all the more heart-wrenching. Only he can save a person from sinless. There is not anyone who can do the same for him. I desire nothing more than to do something to stop this lake from taking so much. I finally believe I understand him in a small way. However, we have separate paths we must follow, and they cannot meet again. I turn forward again and walk with purpose, further and further away from the cursed lake and the brave guide who dwells there. With a solemn heart, I at last arrived at Hema. They were grateful to see me, for it was a desperate situation indeed. The urgency meant that my mind was occupied by other matters. I worked tirelessly to aid Hema's own gods in forcing back the brigadiers. But during the moments of calm, when the sun went down, I would remember the lake. The villagers were alarmed when I arrived on my own, but it did not take them long to guess what must have happened to the melee. Having to recount the terrible story was almost more than I could endure. Yet I know that it will be even worse when I must tell my fellow gods back home. They deserve to hear the truth from me, regardless of how I feel. Margaret and I met and then parted ways again before I arrived at Hema. She did not say where she would be going or what she would be doing. She did, however, put on a smile as she departed, which I felt was more for my sake than her own. I hope she's well, wherever she is, and I would like to think that somehow we may see each other once more on another day. When receiving payments for his services, the guide must give a report of all those who both succeeded and failed to cross the lake. His retelling of events had very little to say of Lou. The red-haired guy was Lou. So she knew him? I don't know. Knew the red-haired kid? I know that because he's not meant to be there, and he was never one to open up, but it still saddens me to face how I never truly got to know who he was. I can only pray that those who cared for him will learn the truth of what happened. I worry about when I must return home to my usual life. It will be difficult to continue as things were before. One thing I know for certain is that my village elder must be told that no one is to cross Sinlos again. I have already told the Hema leaders the same. Not a single more person should have to experience what we did. Its darkness will remain with me for the rest of my days. Though so much was
Deforesting.
lost. Yeah.
Turn it into Brazil.
Make a sky bridge instead of a lake bridge. Though so much was lost, I try to believe that our lessons will keep others from suffering the same way, and in the end, something will be gained. After arriving at my homestead at the end of this long journey, I decided to take a chance. I requested an audience with my leader and presented a letter to give to the guide when he next makes the report. There we go. I told you I can send him notes. We can be pen pals.
Yay!
He graciously accepted my request. Later, I was informed the guide did indeed receive the message. He gave no response. Oh, he's not going to respond to my letters. Either positive or negative. I cannot be sure if he does not mind or simply does not care. He may not have even read my letter. But I want the two of us to remain connected, even if just in this small way. I cannot give in after all, it seems. Something in me feels he wasn't too caught off guard that my stubbornness extends this far. Until he orders I cease communication entirely, I will keep him in my life, no matter how distant, while sharing a window into my own. And all the while, I'll continue to support the secret wish that he keeps, the one that I now share. There you go, I'll just keep sending letters about my day, and he just won't respond, and that's fine.
Hey, how's it going? Hey, I see that you didn't respond. Hey.
Hi. Rainbow Hot Unicorn. Thank you for the writing. I love how some of these are like real names and the other ones are like usernames.
I mean, isn't that how it usually is?
I guess. Well, I mean, like, I feel like in like not an indie game, you would just have everybody's real names. It's just Rebecca. Dusk Golem, aka Aesthetic Gamer.
That is certainly a name.
Time Paradox, but with time like the plant time. Dancing Alpaca. Cake Game Lady. Rosencrantz. 2. The second Rosencrantz.
Not the third?
The second one. Thank you for playing.
Unlucky.
Well,
you're welcome.
Isn't that nice? We did it. We crossed the lake.